Grand Overlord Malachur stood on the command bridge of the Indomitable Will, flagship of the Cthar Alliance fleet, his four upper limbs clasped behind his chitinous back as he gazed through the massive viewport at the lush green-blue world below. Viridian Prime, a newly discovered human colony world, rich with rare minerals the Cthar desperately needed for their ongoing expansion. His compound eyes reflected the planet's pristine beauty, but his mind calculated only resources, strategic value, and the glory of inevitable conquest. The blockade is fully established, Grand Overlord, reported Subcommander Rex from his station. All orbital approaches are covered. No vessels can enter or leave without our permission. Malachur's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. Excellent. The humans will soon understand the futility of resistance. Tactician Xyler approached cautiously, data tablet clutched in his lower appendages. Unlike most of the bridge crew who shared Malachur's certainty of swift victory, Xyler's posture betrayed a hint of concern. Grand Overlord, if I may speak freely? Malachur turned, antennae twitching slightly in annoyance. What troubles you now, tactician? Your caution borders on defeatism. Xyler's head lowered submissively, but he persisted. I have been studying our limited intelligence on humans, Grand Overlord. There are inconsistencies that concern me. Their historical response to external threats does not align with our standard conquest models. Malachur waved a dismissive claw. Humans are primitive, disorganized creatures who rely on diplomacy because they lack the unity and strength to defend themselves properly. Their technology is barely functional compared to ours. Their ships are slower, their weapons less powerful, and their social hierarchy laughably chaotic. He gestured toward the view screen displaying the colony below. Look at them, scattered settlements, minimal orbital defenses. They are ripe for harvesting. With all due respect, Grand Overlord, Xyler persisted, our intelligence suggests their apparent disorganization may be deceptive. They have defeated 3 other expansionist species who made similar assessments. Lesser species, Malachur chittered dismissively. Not the Cthar. We are the inevitable tide of this galaxy's future. The humans will beg, they will negotiate, they will delay. This is what weak species do. And then they will submit, as all eventually must. A communication officer interrupted their exchange. Grand Overlord, we're detecting a single human vessel approaching the blockade perimeter. Small class, appears to be diplomatic in nature. Malachur's mandibles clicked in amusement. Right on cue. The begging begins. The view screen shifted to display a sleek, unimposing vessel with the markings of the United Earth Alliance. Despite its small size, it moved with surprising grace, approaching the Cthar blockade without hesitation. They are hailing us, Grand Overlord, the communications officer reported. Let us hear what pathetic offers they bring, Malachur said, settling into his command throne. The view screen flickered, and a human male appeared. He was older, with silver-streaked dark hair and a composed expression that betrayed neither fear nor anger. His uniform was simple, but adorned with subtle marks of diplomatic authority. Cthar vessel. This is Ambassador Elias Vance of the United Earth Alliance Diplomatic Corps aboard the UES Pathfinder. I request direct communication with your commanding officer regarding your unauthorized blockade of Viridian Prime, a sovereign human settlement under interstellar law. Malachur studied the human with detached curiosity. So this was what they sent. Not a military commander, but a soft-spoken diplomat. It confirmed everything he believed about human weakness. I am Grand Overlord Malachur of the Cthar Alliance, he responded, his translator converting his clicks and chirps into human language. You are in violation of Cthar-claimed space. Your colony occupies a world rich in resources that are now claimed for the glory of the Alliance. Ambassador Vance's expression remained perfectly neutral. Grand Overlord, I appreciate your willingness to engage in dialogue. Viridian Prime was legally settled under Section 7 of the Orion Accords, which your intelligence services may be familiar with. We have maintained consistent presence here for 15 standard years, with registered claim beacons established 3 years prior to initial settlement. Malakur's antennae twitched in irritation. The humans spoke as though they were equals engaged in some minor bureaucratic disagreement rather than facing imminent conquest. The Cthar Alliance does not recognize your Orion Accords, Malakur replied, dismissively. We recognize only the manifest destiny of our species to expand and claim what we require. However, he added, seeing an opportunity to document human weakness for the Alliance. Archives, I am willing to hear your proposals before we proceed with our planned occupation. Vance nodded slightly. I appreciate your openness to discussion, Grand Overlord. Viridian Prime contains resources valuable to both our civilizations. We propose a joint resource management agreement that would allow Cthar mining operations in designated zones while preserving human settlement rights. This would provide you with access to the materials you seek without the complications and costs of hostile action. Behind Malakur, Xyler shifted uncomfortably. The human's proposal was surprisingly reasonable, unnecessarily so, given their apparently weak position. It contradicted Cthar intelligence on human negotiation tactics, which suggested they typically began with inflated demands and worked downward under pressure. Malakur chittered with amusement. You offer us permission to take what we can simply seize? Your arrogance matches your weakness, human. The Cthar do not share. We claim. We conquer. We rule. History suggests that conflict between our species would be costly for both sides, Grand Overlord, Vance replied, his tone still measured, almost gentle. We have detailed records of Cthar fleet movements and capabilities. Your current forces are impressive, but would suffer significant losses in any engagement with Earth Defense Fleet assets, even in victory. Malakur stiffened. The humans spoke as though they possessed intelligence they shouldn't have. A bluff, surely. Your colony stands alone, human. Your nearest military outpost is weeks away at your primitive FTL speeds. Do not attempt to bluff a superior intellect. Vance smiled slightly. I assure you, I'm not in the habit of bluffing, Grand Overlord. I am, however, authorized to present alternative proposals if our initial offer doesn't meet your needs. For the next 3 hours, the human diplomat presented a series of increasingly detailed proposals, each addressing various aspects of resource sharing, territorial boundaries, and mutual security guarantees. His knowledge of Cthar, cultural preferences, and strategic priorities was unsettlingly accurate, even as Malakur rejected each offer with growing contempt. Throughout the negotiations, Xyler observed that Ambassador Vance periodically glanced downward, presumably at displays or communications off-screen. The human maintained his composure regardless of Malakur's increasing hostility, his responses remaining measured and thoughtful, probing for compromise where none would be given. During a brief recess in the discussions, Xyler approached Malakur privately. Grand Overlord, something about this human's behavior disturbs me. He speaks as though he has leverage we cannot see, and our signal analysis shows fragmented, encrypted transmissions emanating from his vessel at regular intervals. Of course he's sending updates to his superiors. Malakur dismissed. Let him report our strength. Let him transmit his fear. But that's just it, Grand Overlord. There is no fear. And the encryption patterns exceed our intelligence estimates of human communication security by several orders of magnitude. We can detect the transmissions, but cannot break even the outermost layers. Malakur's mandibles clacked in irritation. You give these primitives too much credit, tactician. Their diplomat plays his assigned role, nothing more. This is how lesser species behave. They talk, they plead, they delay the inevitable. It is their nature, just as conquest is ours. With respect, Grand Overlord, their behavior does not match our profiles of other conquered species. The Trillari begged. The Vosk threatened empty reprisals. Then Gotti offered bribes. This human, he negotiates as though the outcome is still genuinely undetermined. Then he is deluded. Malakur snapped. Return to your station. I tire of your doubts. When communications resumed, Ambassador Vance presented one final proposal, offering unprecedented access to Viridian's mineral wealth in exchange for recognition of human sovereignty over the planet itself. The terms were extraordinarily generous, involving shared mining operations and technology exchange that would benefit both species. These resources could serve both our civilizations without bloodshed, Grand Overlord, Vance concluded. Cooperation would yield greater prosperity than conflict. Malachar had heard enough. The human's persistence had become an affront to Cathar dignity. He rose from his command throne, his massive form towering over his subordinates. Your pathetic negotiation attempts end now. Human, prepare your colony for processing. We grant you 1 solar cycle to evacuate essential personnel. After that, our patience ends. For the first time, something changed in Ambassador Vance's expression. Not fear, as Malachar had expected and hoped for, but a subtle hardening around the eyes. He drew a slow, deliberate breath. Grand Overlord Malachar, I have acted. In good faith, I have presented evidence of our claim. I have offered peaceful coexistence and mutually beneficial arrangements. You have rejected dialogue and chosen aggression. He paused. United Earth Command has authorized me to inform you. We're done talking. The transmission abruptly cut off. Malachar chittered in derisive laughter. As I predicted, they retreat to lick their wounds and prepare their surrender. But Xyler had gone rigid, his sensory appendages quivering. Grand Overlord, that phrasing, we're done talking, it matches a pattern in our deepest intelligence files on human military communications. What pattern? Malachar demanded, irritated by his tactician's persistent anxiety. It's a terminal phrase, sir. When human commanders use that specific formulation, it historically precedes immediate. Grand Overlord, the censor officer interrupted, his voice rising to a panicked pitch. Multiple subspace ruptures detected. Not from the colony's direction. Behind us. Impossible, Malachar hissed, spinning toward the tactical display. There can't be. The display erupted with contact markers as the fabric of space tore open in dozens, then hundreds of locations surrounding the Cathar blockade fleet. From each rupture emerged a human warship. Cruisers, carriers, battlecruisers, and massive dreadnoughts that dwarfed even the indomitable will. 843 vessels detected and counting, the censor officer reported, mandibles trembling. Formation analysis indicates we are completely surrounded. Xyler stared at the tactical display in horror, recognizing vessel classes that have been documented only in the most classified Cathar threat assessments that have been dismissed as extremely implausible exaggerations. The human fleet had formed a perfect encirclement, emerging precisely where needed to cut off any escape route. Malachar stood frozen in shock, struggling to comprehend the sudden reversal. How had they assembled such a force? How had they known exactly where to emerge? The precision of their formation suggested they had mapped the Cathar fleet's exact position before arrival. Impossible unless they had been monitoring far longer than a brief negotiation. A fleet-wide broadcast, audio only, emanated from the human flagship, Qatar Alliance Fleet. This is Admiral Isha Roy of the United Earth Defense Force. You have illegally blockaded a sovereign human world and threatened non-combatants after rejecting all diplomatic solutions. You have 30 standard minutes to begin full withdrawal from the Viridian system. Non-compliance will be understood as confirmation of hostile intent. The transmission ended. No further communication. No threats. No gloating. Just a cold statement of fact and consequence. Panic erupted across the Indomitable Will's command bridge. Officers chirped and clicked frantically, calling for weapons activation, shield reinforcement, emergency jump preparations. Malachar finally broke from his paralysis, roaring over the chaos. Silence. Maintain discipline. They are bluffing. These must be sensor ghosts or projection fields. The humans lack the capability to field such a force. Xyler rushed to the main tactical station, pushing aside the frozen officer. His appendages flew across the controls, running every possible verification protocol. These are not ghosts, Grand Overlord, he reported, his voice hollow with dread. These are real vessels with active weapons systems and targeting locks. Every Kthar vessel in our fleet currently has multiple weapon solutions plotted against it. He displayed the tactical analysis on the main screen. The precision of their positioning it's beyond anything in our military doctrine. They must have been pre-staged based on our movements before negotiations failed. Impossible. Malachur slammed his claw against the console. No one could predict our deployment pattern with such accuracy. Unless, Xyler said quietly, the human diplomat was never negotiating to win concessions. He was negotiating to confirm our intentions while mapping our positions, tactics, and psychology. The realization hit Malachur like a physical blow. The entire diplomatic exchange had been a sophisticated intelligence-gathering operation, conducted openly while the human fleet maneuvered into position. They had used his own arrogance against him, letting him believe he was humoring a desperate diplomat when in fact he was being meticulously studied. The 30-minute deadline is now 22 minutes from expiration, Xyler noted. The human vessels maintain their positions. Shields active, weapons powered. They are displaying remarkable discipline. No further communication attempts. Malachur watched the implacable human fleet on the view screen. Not a single vessel moved unnecessarily. No posturing, no intimidation maneuvers. Just a perfect, silent encirclement, weapons. Trained on their targets, waiting with terrifying patience. Minutes ticked by. 15, 10, 5. The humans made no further communication attempts. No final warnings. No ultimatums. They simply waited, a wall of steel and firepower surrounding the Kthar fleet, silent as death itself. Malachur had never encountered such unnerving calm from an adversary. In Kthar military doctrine, a show of overwhelming force was accompanied by displays of aggression, psychological warfare to break enemy resolve. The humans did nothing of the sort. Their silence and stillness were more terrifying than any threat. With 2 minutes remaining, Xyler could remain silent no longer. Grand Overlord, I beg you, order the withdrawal. Their firing solutions are perfect. The first salvo would cripple our command vessels before we could return effective fire. This is not a battle. It would be an execution. Malachur's pride warred with his dawning comprehension of the trap they faced. The Kthar way was to fight to the death rather than retreat, but this was not a fight. It was annihilation. His mandibles trembled as he confronted the unthinkable choice between the extinction of his fleet and the dishonor of retreat. The final seconds of the deadline approached. The human vessels remained motionless, weapons locked, a clockwork mechanism of destruction poised to activate. Order! Malachur's voice emerged as barely a whisper. Order the withdrawal. The Kthar fleet began its humiliating retreat, engines straining at maximum capacity as they prepared for FDL jumps away from Viridian Prime. The human fleet observed their departure without pursuit or harassment. The eerie calm remained unbroken. As the Indomitable will prepare to jump, Malachur observed the human fleet beginning a methodical sweep of the system, establishing defensive positions around Viridian Prime. The precision of their movements, the economy of their actions, it spoke of a military doctrine refined through experiences the intelligence files had evidently failed to document. Xyler approached Malachur, not with triumph, but with quiet relief tinged with lingering fear. Grand Overlord, we were fortunate. Malachur, humbled and shaking, stared at the receding image of the human fleet. Fortunate? No, Tactician. We were spared. We have seen the alternative. He reflected on the steady gaze of the human diplomat and the chillingly calm voice of the admiral. Now he understood that the Kthar's true intelligence failure had not been underestimating human technology, but misunderstanding human resolve. Their most dangerous force was not their warships, but the terrifying silence and efficiency that descended the moment their commanders decided words had failed. 6 months later, Malachur stood before the Kthar High Council, accepting full responsibility for the Viridian debacle. His once proud posture was now subdued, his formerly imperious demeanor replaced by a somber gravity. The failure was mine, he stated to the assembled council members. I dismissed crucial intelligence, ignored legitimate warnings from my staff, and proceeded based on flawed assumptions about human capabilities and psychology. High Counselor Vrex, eldest of the ruling body, leaned forward. Your report suggests a fundamental reassessment of human threat classification is warranted. Explain your reasoning. Malaker's antennae lowered in deference. Counselors, our previous understanding of humans characterized them as a fragmented, diplomatically dependent species who rely on negotiation due to military weakness. This assessment is catastrophically incorrect. He activated a holographic display showing footage from the Viridian encounter. Humans employ diplomacy not from weakness, but from practical efficiency. They genuinely prefer peaceful solutions and resource-sharing arrangements. Not because they fear conflict, but because they have mastered its application to such a degree that they see violence as inefficient compared to cooperation. The display shifted to show the perfect encirclement of the Cthar fleet by human warships. When humans determine that diplomacy has failed, they do not escalate gradually as our doctrine would predict. Instead, they shift from full diplomatic engagement to overwhelming military action with no intermediate stage. The transition is absolute and immediate. High Counselor Trask chittered skeptically. You attribute almost mystical capabilities to these mammals, Malaker. Surely your defeat has clouded your assessment. I wish that were so, Counselor, Malaker replied. But subsequent intelligence gathering has confirmed my observations. The human diplomatic vessel was transmitting continuous updates throughout our negotiations, not just recording my rejections, but analyzing our fleet positioning, weapons readiness, shield configurations, and even my personal psychological responses. Their fleet was pre-positioned in nearby star systems days. Before our arrival, ready to execute a coordinated FTL jump once their diplomat confirmed hostile intent. And you believe they could have destroyed our entire fleet? Asked Counselor Hezix. Without question, Malaker replied. Their firing solutions were perfect. Their ships outnumbered ours 3-1, with superior positioning and first strike advantage. Most disturbing was their discipline. No threats, no ultimatums beyond the initial statement. Just silent, implacable readiness. He paused, mandibles working as he considered his next words carefully. The most dangerous aspect of humans is not their technology, which is formidable, or their numbers, which are substantial. It is what happens in the moment their commanders determine that words have failed. There is no rage, no emotion, no posturing, only an eerie calm that precedes perfectly coordinated action. They do not fight like warriors seeking glory. They execute with the precision of surgeons removing a disease. The council chamber fell silent as the implications settled over the gathered leaders. Finally, High Counselor Vrex spoke. Your recommendation, former Grand Overlord? Malaker straightened, accepting the implicit demotion without protest. Immediate cessation of expansion activities in human-claimed sectors. Comprehensive review of all intelligence regarding human military capabilities. Establishment of formal diplomatic channels through neutral intermediaries. And he hesitated, knowing his next words would shock the traditional council. Consideration of mutual non-aggression treaties with provisions for limited resource-sharing agreements. Outraged chittering erupted from several counselors. Vrex raised a claw for silence. You suggest we negotiate with these humans as equals? After one fleet's withdrawal, I suggest we negotiate with them precisely because they are not our equals. Counselor, Malaker replied quietly. They are potentially our superiors in ways we have failed to recognize. The cost of that continued failure will be measured in fleets, worlds, and perhaps the future of our species. Vrex studied Malaker for a long moment. You truly fear these humans. Not fear, Counselor. Respect. For the first time in my military career, I encountered an adversary who did not need to demonstrate their power to wield it effectively. They simply acted with absolute confidence and precision. Malaker's compound eyes reflected the holographic display of the human fleet. When human commanders say, "We're done talking," it is not a threat or a declaration. It is simply a fact, followed by immediate consequences. In the months that followed, the Cathar Alliance began a painful, controversial reassessment of its expansionist policies and its understanding of the quiet, watchful species called humans. Trade representatives were cautiously dispatched to neutral stations. Intelligence resources were redirected from conquest planning to cultural and military analysis. Defensive postures replaced offensive deployments along human border sectors. And throughout Cathar strategic planning, a new doctrine emerged, one that recognized the most dangerous moment in any confrontation with humans was not when their weapons fired, but in that eerie calm that descended when their commanders decided that words had failed. The memory of that silence now haunted Cathar's strategic thinking more than any weapon ever could. In his private quarters, reduced in rank but valued for his unique experience, Malachar studied human history and military doctrine with newfound respect. He had learned what few Cathar ever had, that the true power of humanity lay not in their impressive ships or weapons, but in the terrifying efficiency with which they transitioned from diplomacy to action. They offered peace sincerely, but their response to rejected peace was absolute in its execution. The next time humans said, "We're done talking," the Cathar would understand what those words truly meant. Not a negotiating tactic, but the final quiet breath before the storm.